Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. And this week, my guest is Ellie. Ellie runs the Etsy shop Natural Needle, and she's been selling on Etsy since just this year, 2020. We're going to talk about how opening her store came about and what experiences she's had thus far. So, Ellie, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So before we get into it, can you start off by telling us what you sell on Etsy and just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I have the Etsy shop called Natural Needle, and it is an embroidery shop that sells finished out embroidery pieces that I've stitched myself, or designs that have been turned into do-it-yourself kits, or just simply the design on a transfer sheet, or even into a PDF. And then I also have been dabbling in selling some of my designs as prints too. So that is what my shop kind of sells.
So now you said that, not in this conversation, but before we started the conversation, you mentioned that you just opened your store in 2020 during the pandemic. Why did you decide to open an Etsy shop when the world was going crazy?
Yeah, so I was talking with a coworker about, just trying embroidery, and we both were going to try it at the same time. So I kind of got started and I fell in love with it. And so after I posted my first piece that I finished, someone asked if I could make one for them and they would purchase it from me. And so then I kind of looked into all the research and joined some Facebook groups for advice and inspiration. And I started selling initially through my Instagram, just kind of DMing people and reaching out and trying to learn about, how their algorithms work. And then I finally took the dive into Etsy when I started to get some traction. And I kind of found myself with some extra time because I do have a full-time job outside of Etsy, and we got reduced hours at that point in the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. So I really had this nice, chunk of time throughout my day that I could just jumpstart this little business. And that's kind of where I got to where I am today. So now it kind of just, keeps running, and I'm solely on Etsy. That's how I do all my sales.
Wow. So how did the logistics of selling on Instagram work? And how did you even know that you could sell through Instagram?
Yeah, it honestly wasn't even like what you can do today with, the little circles showing up and you click on it and it tells you the price. It was totally just through like person to person conversation. So I joined a lot of, embroidery and like cross stitch groups on Facebook, and there's a lot of subgroups of certain podcasts. So I've done a lot of designs for a specific podcast where the fan base is very, enthusiastic and super loyal to other makers that are also fans of the podcast. Wow. And so, so I started doing lots of like quotes from the, the funny host of the show. And so basically people would go on these Facebook groups and say, hey, does anybody have a design for this, or can they do that? And so I would, comment, I'll send you a message. And so basically it was totally through like me hustling and trying to directly contact people or have them find me through their friends, which was always the best feeling when people found me through recommendations. So it was totally through direct messaging. That's how I sold on Instagram.
How long did you do that for before you decided it was time to set up a shop?
Probably about 3 months or
Wow.
so. I was really nervous about setting up an Etsy because people, of course, would ask like, "Oh, what's your Etsy link?" And I was like, "I don't have one." But I was nervous just because, some people would complain a lot about Etsy or their fees or whatever. But,
Yeah.
once I really started digging in and doing the full bodied research about it and really reading everybody's comments, to me, it was worth it because Etsy already has the foot traffic that you don't have to go and find for yourself. So I'm
Yeah.
really glad I made the jump, and, it's why I'm still doing it now.
Yeah. Now, why did you and your friend pick hand embroidery?
She is very artsy. So
Okay.
she's already moved on to another craft. Right now she's doing wood burning, which is cool.
Whoa.
My mother used to knit and crochet, and growing up, she taught me a little bit of that. But it's really interesting. I feel like embroidery has kind of gotten a new surge of interest with
Mm-hmm.
people my age and younger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my late 20s, and I feel like people are kind of picking up on it, and they're enjoying the irony of having a cross stitch or embroidery that like has a cuss word on it, but it's in like an old style grandma
Yeah.
type of craft.
Yeah. It's a
And
funny
yeah, so
juxtaposition you wouldn't expect to
yeah,
see.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what drew me into it too. I just thought it was hilarious. And it's a lot easier than I thought it would be too, and super just relaxing, but also you feel very productive once you, finish out your hoop, and you know how much time it's taken, and you literally create a really cool 3D almost image out of nothing. And I
Right.
just I just really have enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's how I tried my hand at it once and I fell in love, and yeah.
About how long would you say it took you to feel like you had mastered the craft?
I mean, I still haven't mastered it, I would say. Gosh, yeah, I don't think everybody is ever finished with any sort of craft. I do feel like since I have drawn a lot in the past, I had a slight advantage to kind of, having the right eye to look for good designs or
Mm.
to really know when a stitch is going to lay correctly. It kind of came to me in the beginning,
Mm.
but I also, like I said before, I did a lot of research. So I'd always watch YouTube tutorials and watch how other people did it, what other people recommended. And then I would dive into a new pattern and, kind of try out things myself. It's totally been a trial and error process.
Yeah.
So, but I would definitely say that I'm still learning.
Okay. How and you probably this is probably subsumed in something you just said now, but learning to create your own kits and then make them downloadable and all that. Well, no, actually the kits can't be downloadable, but you have PDF patterns as well.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've never I've never bought a kit from anybody else. So
Mm.
at first I thought about doing it and seeing how they did it, but
Yeah.
that too was honestly trial and error. And what was really great about first selling through Instagram is you really build up a very personal conversation between you and your customer. And I
Mm.
did a lot of custom designs in the beginning. I did a lot of send me a picture of your house plant and I'll draw it for you, and I'll make a embroidery pattern, and I'll
Mm.
tell you what stitches I recommend to make it, come to life.
Mm.
And so I kind of learned what people were looking for in terms of how easy the directions are, because it turns out when you buy a lot of these kits, a lot of them are maybe from China, or
Yeah.
they've been copied from other sites, and they're just not very clear with their instructions, or their pictures aren't very good.
Mm.
So I kind of just took my cues with every sale from each person and really developed my packaging from there.
That's a good point you make, because I have recently tried hand embroidery, and I bought a kit, and exactly what you said was the problem I ran into. Having never tried it before, I felt like the kit, even though they said it was for beginners, there were some things that some simple instructions and steps that I felt they had skipped because there was an underlying assumption that I or whomever was using the kit already knew some things. But coming in completely as a novice, I needed some steps and they were missing. And so I wasn't able to move forward because there were just some assumptions that were made. So yeah, it makes a difference when you, I guess, get feedback from your customers and iterate on things that they say, could you do this, or could you add this, or could you explain this better?
Yeah, I got a lot of like, what do you mean by this? Or, do I do it this way or that way? So through their questions, I was able to like refine all of my instructions. And I also include YouTube links to my favorite stitchers and show them like, YouTube is a very powerful source if you're just now learning. And I personally am a very visual learner. So I definitely understand like needing good pictures, but video with embroidery really helps. So I definitely include all those links to people, and they say it really helps them. And of course I give full credit to whoever's video it is. And hopefully it brings them some more views and more subscribers as well, so that I'm helping to support, other makers.
Yeah. Nope. It sounds like a good thing you've set up there. Serves me right for buying made in China. I had nobody to ask. So having been, a new entrant into the Etsy marketplace, right when you came on, you probably were aware at the time that Etsy was making a big push for sellers who could to make masks, face masks, to help relieve the burden, ease the, not ease, but, contribute to the supply because of the demand. Were you ever at any point tempted to jump into that market just because it might have been a good way to gain some traction?
I definitely considered it. Honestly, what really held me back was the fact that I don't have a sewing machine. And
small thing.
Yeah. And so I know some people have hand stitched masks, but that would just, it takes them forever. And I really, we didn't have a really low supply of masks or anything in my area. But I also knew a lot of people who were also making masks, like in my friend group and everything, and, selling them here and there. So I did consider it just because there was such a large demand, but I really wanted to, kind of follow this new passion that I had and really put all my energy into that. And especially just because I also don't have, supplies or a sewing machine or anything like that. So that would be pretty expensive to get into anyway. Whereas embroidery for me was super approachable and kind of easy to dip my toes in.
And you also picked a good niche, because I don't know if you keep up with the Etsy news and if you read what the information that they share, but one of the things that they did share was that crafting kits really had a huge spike during the pandemic as well, because people were home and they wanted to do something other than, binge Netflix. And so they were learning new crafts, and kits were doing particularly well because, everything was all in one, all the supplies, the instructions, and with Etsy, access to the designers. So if you had questions, like your customers might, they could reach out to you. So I think you picked well.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like it really lucked out. I looked later towards like the middle of the summer where Etsy said, however much percentage of an increase specifically was for embroidery and embroidery kits. And I was like, well, that was good timing on my part. And, I wish now I could go back with everything that I know now and have so much more to my shop. But it was an awesome experience, coming in and already having that demand there and just getting to enter into that world without having to, fight for demand.
Yeah. So when you did come onto the market, you already had a a customer base. You already had people who were following you and who were already looking for you to be on the platform, to be in Etsy. So have your goals changed between then and now? Then, you came in kind of like in response to people expecting that you were already there. Now, are your goals for your shop different now that you've seen the viability of what you're doing?
I definitely think so. In the beginning, my goals were definitely to focus on reaching out to people to make a custom design every single time. And as the process, went through, I realized that it was just so time intensive and I wasn't pricing myself correctly. I was really lowballing myself because I wasn't giving, enough of a hike in price to make up for the time spent. So now really my goals are mostly trying to keep up with different like pop culture trends and make something that I can sell to multiple people versus just like the one. And that's something that's really helped me with my sales this summer was following the different trends and making funny embroideries. So like my first one that I think really popped off was like making them off of different shows and like different characters or funny quotes. And so I kind of just went from there for people who want to make something of, what really comforted them during their quarantine and their Netflix binging.
Yes. So you mentioned pricing and realizing that based on the amount of effort you were putting in, you weren't properly pricing your products. How has your pricing strategy evolved now?
Yeah, I definitely, it's definitely different now that when I make a design, I know that I'll be selling, more than just one of it. So they're not as pricey as they would be if it was just like a singular custom design. So I looked at the market, I see what other people are selling their kits for. Some of them go up to like $50 or $60. And then some of them are, like the ones from China are usually about like $15. And so mine are they're anywhere between like 22 to, I think my most expensive is 35. And that's just because it's a really intensive design. So I really tried to place myself in the middle of the market, but also, enough to where people know they're buying a quality product and not something that's just cheap and fast.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how you manage your time. You're still working another job outside your home, and now you're doing Etsy as well, and that seems to be growing. What does a typical day look like for you doing both?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm still figuring it out. So, I'm a zookeeper at my local zoo here. And so right now our hours have changed almost month to month at this point. At first, they reduced our hours, but now they've increased them to 10 to 11-hour days. So if it is a zookeeping day, then honestly, I come home and sometimes I have the energy to do maybe an order, especially depending on what it is. And then other times I usually wait till my weekend, and then I can usually spend my 2 to 3 day weekends really pumping out orders as fast as possible. So honestly, it kind of depends on the day, but my Etsy days, I wake up and I check my orders and I kind of start putting kits together for them and packaging. And also here and there, I'll try to design some new designs and try my best at social media. I'm still, kind of learning how to really get myself out there on there. So it's a good mix of everything on my weekends, is lots of Etsy stuff.
Okay. Now, speaking about putting together the kits and whatnot, how do you know how much inventory to keep on hand just so that you don't run out and can fulfill your orders in time? And do you have some that you that you just put together and keep ready to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the beginning, I tried to do that, but ended up, it was hard for me to guess, how many kits of each design I was going to sell.
Yeah.
So now I don't do that. I put them together with every order that's put in. And I just have to keep an eye on all my stock. It's in my dining room area, which is half of my living room. So I have this whole giant Etsy corner with all my supplies, and so I'm able to keep an eye on it because it's all out and I can see it all. But luckily I am in a big city, so I do have lots of craft stores. Some of my supplies do take time to come in, so I do try to use as much like natural materials, and I use a compostable mailer too, just to help reduce my impact on the environment. And I guess part of that comes from my zookeeping background. We're very big on conservation and helping the environment as much as possible. So I knew I'd be pumping out a lot of stuff with my business. So those compostable mailers take like a month to come in. And so if I run out, it's hard, and I'll have to use like a paper mailer or something. But I always make sure to message my customers. It's only happened like once or twice, but like, I'm sorry, it's coming in a different envelope this time. I swear it'll come in my normal one next time. Just so you know.
Yeah. Now, where do you get the compostable mailers?
Yeah, it's a company called No Issue, and they do. If you buy enough, you can put your own logo on tissue paper or the mailers themselves, or I think they also make stickers too, and tape maybe. But yeah, it's called No Issue. I really like them so far. It does take a while to get your stuff, but I mean, they're pretty cute.
Yeah. And I mean, composting does take time.
That's true.
So when you use them, do you tell your customers how to recycle them, or like what are they supposed to do with the mailers after they get them?
So it comes on the package themselves. So if it's really great because it tells you like what it's made out of, and usually it's like corn or something like that. But basically, if you have a compost pile or anything, they have a website link on there that you can look and see exactly how to do it, which is really easy for the consumer to kind of look into. And it breaks down in about, I think it was 6 months or something. So which is, pretty crazy if you think about it, but it's still waterproof, and I've never had any issues about it breaking during transit. So I'm pretty happy with them. Yeah.
Yeah, you answered my next question, because I was going to say that's exactly what I was going to ask is how do they stand up under the elements and weather and whatnot?
They seem to hold up really well. I've sold all over the United States, so I've never had anybody complain about it. So yeah, It's been really great.
Okay, cool. And speaking of selling all over the US, do you sell internationally?
I don't. That intimidates me a little bit. So I haven't really. I think also the shipping has the prices are pretty crazy. So I've had people reach out to me from the UK and Australia and Canada, and we've looked into it a couple different times, me and the customers, and it's usually the shipping's going to be like $20, but the kit is worth $30, so it's kind of hard for them to justify. And so that is one of the reasons why I decided to do PDF patterns. So that way, if they really love the design, they can still download it and just transfer it onto their own fabric at home.
Okay, yeah, that's a nice compromise. And yes, shipping is ridiculous going when you ship internationally. But I have found that some people, some customers are willing to pay for something they really want. So maybe just keep it at the back of your mind.
I will. I will. I should put it in my Etsy bio. Like, let me know, and we can try to work something out.
Yeah. And now I know there are third-party shipping alternatives that are popping up because USPS is having issues, and their pricing is going haywire. And so I know that there are some third-party companies that are popping up to fill in those gaps. So it might be doable, but it will take some research for sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever do market research by just like to see how you're doing compared to your competition? Do you even worry about your competition?
You know what? At first, I really did. I was, very much like, oh, I'll never get to their level, or
I know the feeling.
like, look, they have over 1,000 sales. Like, I'll never be there. And, that's like me, 4 months into this thing. And, so, but now I've gotten really comfortable with where I'm at. And I'm still hoping that my business will grow. And, I'm hoping that it'll get, too fast for me. And, I wouldn't mind doing Etsy full time. That'd be so cool.
Really? So you think you would want to?
I think if it were to bring in enough,
okay,
I could, just cause I love my job. It's unlike anything else I could possibly do. But as I get older, I might want to become a mom, or maybe not work a manual labor job, 10 hours out of my day, and, in 95-degree heat for the rest of my life. So what's been really great about this whole process for me, it's really opened my eyes to a whole part of, this different industry that I never thought I would be a part of. So I'm not saying I think I would ever get to that point, but I'm not ruling it out if it happens to really grow.
Yeah. And if it's something you want, for sure, go for it. I know that we, on Etsy, we as sellers just span different goals. Like some people like it as a side business because they enjoy what they do full time. Some people like it as a hobby, as a hobby that pays for itself. And some people are gung-ho 100%. This is a business. This is what is going to be my full-time income. And the nice thing is that the platform allows all of those. Allows as in not like they say no, but as in you can if you want to be anywhere on that spectrum.
And still be successful. Yeah, that's what's so nice. And, you still, if it was just like a small side hustle, which that's what mine is right now, I don't have to spend all day marketing for someone to go to my like third party website that wouldn't normally have traffic. But Etsy, it's really nice because they have the customer base there. And if you work on your SEOs and your pictures and you can update it here and there, you'll still get customers coming through if they like your products. And so, I'm a big fan so far of the platform.
That's good. Now, speaking about driving customers, what do you do to promote your Etsy shop? What's your strategy for just generating excitement around your brand and your products?
I do try to get involved on these different embroidery Facebook groups. Okay. And I do, if people ask for a specific type of design, lots of people will comment, but I'll just throw my little shop in there too. And if people drop by and see something that they like and they can get it. And I also got involved in TikTok as well. And I've started making videos on there, which has been pretty fun.
Has it?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's a little more complicated than I initially thought it would be. But just because it's a very involved app, you can do so much with video editing that I'm still learning because you have so many options. And I also just enjoy the app as a consumer as well. It's very entertaining for me. So, I've been able to make TikTok videos and then save those videos and post them on my own other social media platforms. Yeah. So it feels good to me in that sense as well, because it's allowed me to make cool videos. Like I've made some tutorials on there and those really blew up. Okay. And when I posted it to my Instagram, all my followers were super happy to see a tutorial, and that led everybody to my I have a beginner stitcher's kit that covers like 11 different stitches that are both basic, but also some more complicated ones. And that kit started selling a lot after I did a couple tutorials on TikTok. So to me, it's definitely been a successful investment of my time. I've really enjoyed it.
Okay. See, I really enjoy TikTok as a consumer. I've never even attempted to do anything on it because the videos are just so entertaining. But it does seem to me when I see when I like some of the people I enjoy following on TikTok, I think about the time and the effort that they put into making their videos because some of them go all out.
Yes.
and I just can't imagine doing that. So for you, have you found that it has been worth the effort?
I think so. I think I definitely need to do more tutorial videos because those have been my most popular. But yeah, they can take a lot of time. You also can do, more simple videos with less editing if you want. So it definitely allows for that as well. But for me, it's been worth it simply because I think I've gotten more sales because of my efforts on TikTok.
So you're doing some long form videos, I assume, with the tutorials.
Well, they're just 60 seconds.
Well,
so it's really
do a tutorial
quick
in 60 seconds. See, that's why I was confused because all the videos I see are, 1 minute and less. How do you do a tutorial in 60 seconds?
Well, it does allow you to speed up your video. So I take my video normally on my regular camera on my phone. And when you put it into the app, you could speed it up to 3 times the speed and then you can voice over it. So that's what I did. And it's, I only went over, I think maybe 2 or 3 stitches on my most successful video, but I just made sure I had both my voiceover giving tips and saying what I was doing. And I also had text boxes that were saying something different on the video. So, which is also good for the algorithm because the more people that rewatch your video and like it and comment on it, of course, the more places that TikTok will place your video in different groups of people. So I think it's good. I kind of loaded that video up with a lot of instructions. So that way people had to rewatch it to really digest all of it.
Oh, good. That's actually a good strategy. Well, I mean, I know you weren't trying to game the algorithm, but that's good because then it helps you as well.
Yeah. And I'm able to really give all my information that I give in my kits, in a super condensed version. And because, like I said, embroidery is so much trial and error to see what looks good and what you like personally. And so if I'm able to give little tips that normally you don't find online, just stuff that I've learned personally, I've just got a lot of comments of like, wow, this helped me out so much. Thank you. And I'm going to buy this kit so I can practice with you. And yeah.
And are you able to link to your Etsy shop or to specific listings in your shop from TikTok?
I just have my Etsy link in my bio. So it's just similar to your bio, like how you have on Instagram, but I don't have any specific links on there for specific items. Okay,
I see. So interesting. I would not have thought that you could use it for something educational or marketing even, but apparently you can. So that's good to know. Given everything that you do with respect to your shop, so the administrative work, social media, making, shipping, customer service, all that, on average, about how much time do you estimate that you spend just tending to your shop?
Probably, gosh, because then you'd really have to get into the nitty gritty of, commenting on other posts and sharing your stuff with other people, not necessarily just on your own social media platform, but probably 30 to 40 hours a week at least. just because I do it here and there throughout the day. I do it on my lunch breaks at work, and I do it when I get home at night. And then, of
Yeah.
course, I have all of the, actual production of everything on my weekends. So at least, 30 to 40 hours, if not 50.
Yeah. And that sounds about right for growing a business.
Yeah, and I don't mind it. It makes me happy. And of course, there's always those weeks where I feel, too tired from my normal job. So I kind of slow down a little bit and
Yeah.
I don't post as often. So it definitely has its ups and downs. But when
Yeah.
I'm rolling, I'm rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel the same way. I feel like when you're on a roll, or when I'm on a roll, I try and get so much done, because when those tired days come, or those listless times where you're just like, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to see a computer, I don't want to look at my phone, then you'll feel not so bad that you actually went, over and beyond when you had the stamina.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, typically when you get an idea for a new design, how long does it take for you to develop the idea, create it, execute, and then have it listed and ready for sale?
If I sit down at my iPad and I work on it, it could take probably up to from anywhere from 1 hour to 3 or 4 hours, depending on what it is. Again, what's nice about embroidery is sometimes a good design is, borrowing things here and there from your previous designs and mashing them together, or just a simple but funny quote, and then those sell really well. So I do a lot of character art, and those definitely take a lot longer too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say from an hour to 3 to 4 hours at most for the designing and putting it out there. And of course, listing also takes up time too.
Right. Yeah. And would you say, since you have a store that has a mix of physical and digital downloads, which ones would you say are currently doing better, the digital products or the physical?
I think my physical products definitely sell more.
Okay.
I do sell some PDFs here and there. Etsy just did my first offsite ad, and I didn't even know they were doing it until I got the sale and I saw it on my dashboard this week. But it was, they chose the item, which I haven't sold in a while, but it was a PDF, and so someone just bought that.
Nice.
But so I do sell, definitely both, but my physical items, I think, are what draw people in.
Yeah. I guess you can think there's, I guess, a huge market of people who just want the work done already.
Yes.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
I just want to display this. I don't even want to try.
Yeah. Oh, so do you mean for the ones that are already stitched, or do you mean for my kits and stuff like that?
Oh, okay. I was thinking the ones that are already stitched. Did you mean that your kits sell more?
Yes, I meant physical products. Sorry. Yes, my kits and my transfer sheets definitely sell a lot. But in terms of the already stitched items, they don't sell as quickly. But I think it's because they're much higher priced, because it's a handmade item that's taken a super long time to make. So, but yes, I'm glad I clarified.
I am too, because that just reinforces what Etsy, was saying, that people are looking to learn and do stuff, do these things themselves. So it just makes sense now that you clarified that the kits are what are flying off the shelves.
And usually when people buy the finished pieces, it's usually as a gift. So I found that finding different niche markets and then making sure all my tags are good for, gifts for her, gifts for teachers. That's usually when people buy my finished pieces.
Okay. Oh, good. Makes sense. What would you say are some of the things, looking back, that you did that have helped you to find success on Etsy in what you're doing?
Some things that I have found that's helped me be successful.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah, definitely learning from other sellers.
Okay.
So, like I've said so many times now, but I'm really very active in those Facebook groups, and so many people are trying to learn from each other. And so I'm on there reading other people's questions and other people's answers about how to market and how should I deal with this type of customer and things like that. And so really it's just learning from other people and other makers.
How do you find good groups to join? And have you found that some aren't helpful and you've actually just left?
Yes. Yeah. So definitely I prefer ones that are more geared towards my niche in the Etsy market. Okay. Not to say that I also don't dabble in just regular Etsy seller groups. But yeah, some of them, it says like tips for sellers on Etsy and not a lot is posted, or it's just the same basic information. So that's really how I kind of decipher over time of which ones I'm really going to pay attention to and which ones I can leave.
Yeah. Okay, good. And you said most of these are on Facebook. Okay. Okay.
I do follow on my Instagram some other embroidery makers. Just because, there are so many talented people out there that I love seeing their work. And sometimes it's a bad thing because I'm like, gosh, I'm not that good. But other times it's just amazing to see what other people are creating. So I like to follow them to support them. And so on Instagram I follow too, but really to help me with my Etsy, it's those Facebook groups that are very beneficial.
Okay, good to know. So far in your time selling on Etsy, is there something, maybe one thing, maybe two things that you really like about selling on Etsy? And then on the flip side, are there any features that don't yet exist on the platform that you might like to see one day?
That's a really good question. Of course, I enjoy that people are finding me just by typing into the search bar embroidery kit, and I don't have to do too much to find that customer. I also like that they do anything that has sold out or has recently sold will come back towards like the top of your shop. So that way, if it's popular, people are going to see it first. I think that's a really interesting idea that they've come to life on your shops. As far as something that's not there, I do love the new video that they're beta testing right now. I think that could also be like a game changer. It'd be neat if your thumbnail image could just be like a little video or something, or if it'll blow up bigger on the page. And, on the search page, if you had a video of your product, it would be a little more featured to give you some advantage. That would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. I think that would be nice because I think nowadays video content is where it's at. Like video is everything. I remember hearing that years ago that, video. And even then I was like, no. But now, now even I myself find that I gravitate more towards video. If I have to look at a static picture or I can see a video, I'm going to watch the video. Yeah, something moving. Yes, I'll watch that before I just stare at the picture. And yes, you're right. It would be nice because I think everybody now generally knows that video, that video symbol with the play button. So it would be easy to say, oh, that's a video. Let me watch that. But I don't.
Or if it pops up like on Netflix, when you go to the homepage and a trailer just starts playing, like how neat would it be if you type in embroidery kit and a couple videos here and there just start playing,
Ellie,
without sound. Yeah.
You're thinking big time here. I like that.
If Etsy wants to hire me, I'll accept any inquiries at this point.
Well, hopefully somebody there is listening, because that's a good idea, actually. What would you say to that person listening now who is kind of on the fence, is intimidated to come onto the platform because, it's Etsy. It's been around for a while and, everybody says it's so saturated. What would you tell that person? Because that was you not too long ago.
Yeah. And I literally asked the same question, even in those embroidery groups that I'm a part of, is it's such a saturated market, especially embroidery, especially what I do. I was, so worried about finding people. And I just was met with very positive comments and affirmations of people just saying, just do it. Like, you have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain and you can always try it. And, and so I finally just did it. And that's what I would tell to anybody considering it. Just try it. Do your best with taking pictures that you can. I mean, we're so lucky now that we can take good quality photos with our cell phones and next to a window, and they're good enough for Etsy. And I mean, that's how I take all my photos, is just from my phone. So at this point, anybody could do it if they just, really look into, tips for setting up their shop and without that much overhead or anything. So I would just say, just go for it.
Okay. Yeah. And that's, I couldn't say anything else to anyone. I that's how I came on too, was, I knew nothing and I just thought, well, I'll figure it out. There has to be a way. Somebody else is doing it and I bet they don't have two heads. So yeah, it's doable. I mean, there are things you have to learn, but you can certainly start without knowing everything and without actually knowing very much too.
Yes. And also what was nice is through the platform itself, Etsy gives you a lot of tips and tools and articles to read on their own platform. Because if you're successful, they'll be successful, so they really want to help you succeed. And so to me, that was very helpful. And I remember in the beginning, they would send me notifications like, in the last 2 weeks, you had 10 sales, send them a thank you note. And I could just do it right there in the app. And I was just thinking the other day, where's that service again? I would love to be reminded to do that.
Yes.
But when they're, in the beginning, when you're first starting out, it really feels like they put in a lot to help you, get under your feet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I did used to get reminders and now I don't anymore. That actually was kind of nice to be like, oh yeah, I should say thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any tools or resources that you found particularly helpful in what you're doing on Etsy, to help make things better or help make things easier for you or help to educate you? I know we already talked about the tools and resources that Etsy itself offers, but anything else?
Just a lot of YouTube Googling and, just regular web searches and YouTube videos of people walking themselves through their own shops. And of course, now that I'm on TikTok, which is way after the fact that I started Etsy, there's a lot of, TikTok Etsy sellers on there who also give lots of tutorials and tips as well. So I just, in all aspects of my life, I try to be a sponge and absorb as much information as possible and make sure that I'm always learning something new. And everybody on any platform is going to have something that they know that you don't know. So I try to just take everything that I see as a learning opportunity.
I like that. I didn't ask you this before, and if you don't have one, you don't need to, but do you have an Etsy shop shout out? And since I know you started on Instagram, it could be someone on Instagram as well, but either a seller that has helped you along the way or that you found inspiring in your journey here on Etsy and what you're doing.
Yes, that's such a nice question. I just pulled out my Instagram to make sure I got there. their handles correctly, but and what's great also about the Etsy platform is so many other Etsy sellers that do different things from you also want to support fellow Etsy sellers. Yeah. And so that's what I found when I first started my journey. So one of them, her store is called Co-op of Creation. And so it's COOPOFCREATION. And she's bought a few of my kits, and she sells really, really awesome stuff that's totally different from mine, but we both support each other's shops. And yeah, she's just awesome. And then also I have one more, which is hers is of Simplicity and Spice. And it's exactly how it sounds. So of Simplicity and Spice. And she's great too.
And are these their Etsy shops or their Instagram handles?
Those are their Instagram handles. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it also might be the name of their shop as well, but without the underscores and things like that.
Okay, so I will hunt down their Etsy shops as well, and then make sure I link to both their Etsy shops and their Instagram handles so folks can go follow them or check out what they're doing, and then let them know Ellie sent you if you do.
Yes, yeah, I would love that.
Now, Ellie, if anyone wants to connect with you and get in touch, what's the best way they can do that?
Definitely through my, either direct messages on my Instagram or Etsy shop. I've really lucked out in that I have the same handle for everything. So I'm just at Natural Needle. And if anybody has questions or anything, I would love to hear from them. And I'm also happy to help out anybody else who has any, wanting to start their own embroidery side hustle.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Ellie.
Oh, you're too sweet. Thank you.
So again, Ellie's shop is Natural Needle. I will for sure link to it in the notes for this episode, as well as her Instagram handle, which also is Natural Needle. So you can connect with her, check out what she's selling. If you're in a holiday funk and you want to get out, get yourself a crafting kit, an embroidery kit, and learn something new. And as you can tell, Ellie is accessible. So if you have any questions, she'll be there for you. Ellie, thank you so much for being my guest on the podcast. I'm so curious to see where you'll be, in a year or so from now, where you are, since your journey is just kind of,
just now getting started.
It's just getting started, yes. And it's going, it's like you came in and you gained momentum, because I know a lot of sellers sometimes will come in and have a slow start on Etsy. And so far that hasn't been your path. And then, the holiday season and all whatnot. So can we touch base again later on just to catch up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm really trying to brainstorm. I just came out with some, fall themed things and Halloween themed things. And I know when this episode comes out, it'll be right in time for Christmas, and I'll have stuff for that as well. But I'm really looking forward to the holiday season and seeing how crazy it can be.
Well, brace yourself, because it does get crazy, and you just take your break after.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. The holiday for me will come after.
Yes. Thanks again, Ellie, for being my guest on the podcast. I really have enjoyed talking with you, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, thank you. Me too.
And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back again next week. If you would like to connect with me, you can go to convome.com and fill out the contact form to send me a message. If you want to be my guest, use the Be My Guest form also on also at convome.com. And if you just want to message me quickly, the fastest way to do that right now is on Instagram at ConvoMePodcast. Again, I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, and I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.